Good morning, Chair Volendroff, members Garrett and Holmes, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thank you, Gretchen. Good morning, everyone. Just a second here. Okay, sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to now convene the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board meeting for Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. We have a very full agenda today, so I am going to ask everybody to please stay on schedule as much as possible, and we'll be moving us along accordingly. So the first...
Jim,
yep.
Board Caucus.
I'm sorry, Board Caucus. Thank you, Board Member Garrett. So the first item on the agenda is approval of board minute meetings from 2023. And so I'm going to be looking for a motion from Board Member Garrett approving the board minute meetings as listed on the agenda.
I approve the board meeting minutes as listed on the agenda.
I second, so moved. We will move right into our second agenda item, which is a social equity update with Aaron Washington.
A good Tuesday to you, Chair Volendroff, members Garrett.
Good morning.
Holmes.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing? I'm Aaron Washington, Program Manager to the Social Equity Program, and in support, I have Sarah Worley, our Program Specialist Case Manager. Today, I'll be giving a program update about the current social equity applicants and the registration window. Next slide, please.
We can't see the slide presentation. Oh, there it is.
Okay, I'm gonna go
Thank
back. You. All right. Slide 2. As of January 2025, there are now 7 social equity licensees who are operating their cannabis businesses after eligibility in September of 2023. Each of these owners have self-identified their ethnic background for us to share. Of the 7 licensees, 3 are African American, 2 are Hispanic, and 1 is Caucasian, all with 100% ownership. The 7th license consists of 2 people identifying as one being Black and one being white. This chart also includes 2 licensees who are title certificate holders that were able to relocate under the social equity program from a city or town that had a ban or moratorium. These owners have also self-identified, one as multiracial, Chinese and Black, and one as Caucasian. As you can see, there are 32 pending social equity applicants still in the process to secure a license and 3 title certificate holders who have not yet relocated. Next slide, please. Our next slide is a list of counties where the current social equity licensees are operating. Bear in mind, the social equity team continues to reach out to counties, cities, and towns to provide information about participating in a regulated cannabis market. The legislature allows up to 52 additional cannabis retail licenses for social equity. 17 existing licenses have been returned to the LCB. A total of 69 cannabis retail licenses are now available. Next slide, please. As announced, the registration window has opened as of June 2nd. It will remain open for 30 days until closing on July 1st. People who are interested must register through the LCB portal on the front page of the LCB website or from the social equity web page. Minimal information is required for registration. Your name, address, contact, email, and phone, as well as date of birth. Social security numbers are optional, not required. Keep in mind, this is a different process from the last window. The public does not apply through Business Licensing Services, or BLS, at the Department of Revenue for registration. Also, do not create a Secure Access Washington SAW or LCB portal account to register for the social equity program. It is not needed. After registering through the LCB portal, registrants will get an email containing a registration number and must be kept for future use. If there are any questions about registering, a great user guide is on the LCB portal resource page, or send an email to licensing social equity at lcb.wad.gov to contact the social equity team. Next slide, please. As a reminder, if multiple people make up 51% majority of the business, only one person of that entity will need to register. But each person must meet 2 of the 4 qualifications. After the window closes on July 1st, LCB will send a list of all registrants to our third-party contractor, AltaPoint Consulting. AltaPoint Consulting will reach out to registrants by email with information about how to create an account on their website to submit documentation. Registrants must make sure their email address is correct for AltaPoint Consulting to make contact after the window closes. Next slide, please. While a registrant is waiting for contact, they can review the LCB website where we have the social equity education videos, begin preparing supporting documentation, and watch tutorial videos by AltaPoint Consulting on their website. In closing, the registration window record shows 140 registrants in the queue. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Aaron. That's terrific. Board Member Garrett, looks like you have a question or comment.
Yeah, on your last statement of what's in the queue, are you saying that's already signed up for trying to get a social equity license?
Yes, in fact, at the close of business yesterday, first day, we had 110, and as of this morning, we have 140 registrants ready to go in the queue, waiting for response from AltaPoint. Of course, we still have until July 1st before it closes. But yes, 140 registrants have already come forward.
Do we know what that's like compared to the first round? Was it that high in the beginning?
You know, I don't have the numbers for the first day, if you will, for the last round. However, in comparison, we had roughly 500 total who came forward to apply under 2870. But mind you, just in day 1, or I should say day 2, we have 140. So perspective wise, I mean, we're well over 30, close to 40% of the capacity that we had last time, just getting started. So who's to say what the number would be?
On the DIA maps, they're the same that we used in the last round, correct?
No, same mechanics. However, the DIA maps were expanded as per the legislative mandate to make sure that we expand the areas to identify where those were most impacted by the war on drugs. And that has been put into the current GIS mapping system now.
Okay, so that could account for some of the folks that's coming in now, trying to get in now.
New eligibility based on
well,
the maps.
Yeah, it's very possible. But of course, the third-party contractor will be the one to evaluate, determine that. But I think too, that because the registration process does not require people to go through BLS, Department of Revenue, in order to pay the fees, it's free. You just come forward, you learn if you're eligible, and then if you are identified towards the end, that's when you start taking those steps. And mind you, the LCB will notify those folks once we've identified who's been selected to go forward with the highest scores.
Right. And my last question, if you can answer it, do you know if we know of any other municipalities that have opened up and said they would take more? And I know we had, was it Everett or someone that said they would take more? Have those two questions, had the slots been filled already for those? And then do we know if there's others that are saying they would take more?
From what I recall, when we met with Linwood,
Right.
Yes, Linwood decided to open up their area more. We had 4 people who are title certificate holders, I believe, if I'm correct, since 2015, and that opened them up. And they also considered expanding area for possibility of new applicants coming forward as retail licensees. We've also met with the County of Yakima, District 2. That's still in the works. We spoke with them January of 2024. And as of, I want to say March or February of this year, we had another meeting with them, and they're working on having conversations with the commission to introduce more cannabis retail licenses. So still waiting for that one, but we've made some steps forward with them.
Thank you.
Terrific. Board Member Holmes, any questions or comments?
Board Member Garrett covered mine pretty well, but it sounds like great news initially on the numbers. It'd be great to see the breakdown once the period closes. I do have one question. It may be for Kevin later on, and that is, we are looking at rulemaking that would change the way we measure the buffer zones, and that theoretically could open more territory for licenses. I just wonder if you guys are coordinating just to see if there's any overlap on the timing when that rule change might happen.
That is certainly a conversation topic that we've had. We recognize that there has been some, bills brought forward to kind of relook at what those zones look like and measure the distance. It could certainly be of benefit to folks. Of course, that's in the works, and once we learn more detail about that, we can follow up with it to the board.
Thanks. Only other thing I would add is if I can help in any of the outreach to some of the municipalities that have opted out of 502, I certainly would be happy to assist in any way I can.
Well, I appreciate that. Any effort to touch base with local authorities is welcomed. We have made some headway with the Association for Washington Cities. We will be meeting with them every other month. We have a meeting scheduled for June 11th, in fact, to establish a partnership and hopefully encourage more cities to participate in the regulated cannabis market, open up their areas and the like. So, baby steps, but certainly with some optimism and intention to help those moving forward, particularly 5080 and those who are trying to find a spot now.
That's terrific. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. And please do take board members up on their offers to assist in any way possible. I think that's great. I also just want to add my appreciation and thanks to the licensing division, Aaron, you and your team for the work that we've done in this particular area. I've been on the board now for 3 years, and to see the progress made is exciting. And Board Member Garrett, I'd like to also just acknowledge your participation and leadership in this particular area. It's been terrific. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It certainly takes a village to raise a child. Appreciate your assistance.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day. All right. We now have our research team. And so we have Sarah Oki, who's going to provide us an update on the research roundtable that was recently held. So Sarah, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Hello, Chair Vollendrop and members Garrett and Holmes. Today I'll be giving just a really brief update on the research roundtable that the research program hosted a little less than a month ago today on Wednesday, May 7th. Just a first brief overview about research roundtables. They were developed to provide a forum for open dialogue, knowledge sharing, and collaboration on topics of common interest and emerging area of concerns. So really 2 goals. The first goal is for LCB to listen and learn from scientists and researchers to better understand scientific evidence and barriers on current topics and issues. And then conversely, the purpose is also to provide a space for scientists and researchers to listen and learn from us about emerging topics of concern. To help them understand what might be good to research and to produce science on. So we have initially set this roundtable for 3 times a year, once in the spring, once in the fall, and once in the winter. And we structured this roundtable to be grounded in discussion, brainstorming, and problem solving. So there are no official actions or positions that come out of these roundtables. The purpose is to create a space where people can throw out ideas and make connections, even if those ideas are not fully formed. And because of this, these roundtables are closed discussions for really LCB, government agencies, and external researchers. So that's our vision going into this. Before I jump into the first roundtable that we had in May, any questions about the overall structure from any board members?
No questions.
So our topic on May 7th was how can LCB and universities better collaborate to improve research and lab testing initiatives on stateside cannabis, so cannabis that is legally sold here in the state. And we chose this topic as our first commencement roundtable topic because stateside cannabis has historically been absolutely incredibly difficult to get your hands on as a scientist. And that's because it's federally still a Schedule I substance, and research scientists are generally in a university setting, and universities receive money from federal grants. So putting hands on products that are federally illegal is really extremely difficult to do as a scientist and has a lot of red tape to it. But as a government agency, we really care about developing policies that are evidence-based, and we have legalized cannabis in the state, so that discrepancy is pretty big. And as a research program, we see a lot of potential opportunities for universities to increase stateside cannabis research and testing initiatives. Yes, Chair Waldroff.
Can you just quickly share with us where they get their cannabis then if it's not state cannabis, just for making sure everybody understands the challenge that that we face?
Yeah, so currently right now, you have to go through NIDA to receive cannabis. So and there are lots of different barriers with this. So NIDA, you have to purchase and receive NIDA grown cannabis products. Those products do not reflect the products that are sold in our markets today. So you can't go and get vape pens that have 80%, 90% THC concentration. The flower that you get do not reflect, again, like the THC concentrations that I could go into a store 10 minutes down my road and purchase and use. So that's a huge barrier, is that the stuff that we can study does not reflect the stuff that people can legally purchase and use.
So what we really want is our universities to be able to do the research based on the products that are available to consumers here in Washington State at the end of the day.
That would be incredible, yes. So there's lots of red tape, and our researchers have gotten incredibly crafty and creative with how to get around some of these red barriers. So our first presenter was Dr. Carrie Cutler. She's co-director for CC Pro at Washington State University. She's Center, CC Pro stands for Center for Cannabis Policy Research and Outreach at Washington State. And she presented on the barriers and solutions to stateside cannabis research. So because we can't touch cannabis that's sold in stores, there are alternative ways. There's still barriers, but for example, you can Zoom with participants who are using in their home, or you can have something that's called, I know that Nick and I have done this in research that we've done outside of here, is something called an ecological momentary assessment, where people are responding to prompts on their phones or wearing devices that, again, they're using. It is a crafty solution. There are still barriers because you're not directly observing people, which would be nice, but there are solutions that can help us close some of this gap. The second presenter was Will Claiborne, Director for Research Laboratories at Washington State University Health Sciences Spokane, and he discussed opportunities for lab standards. And this was particularly related to whether or not testing products on a university campus would ever be a possibility in Washington State. And so there's kind of like a cutoff here of research versus testing products. And so there's a little bit of a difference, and that difference is can overlap and be dissimilar at the same time. So we additionally had special guests from the University of California, San Diego, who is currently a reference lab for the Department of Cannabis Control in California. And so they help to also clarify with answers and questions about what they do in California. So for example, they currently have it set up where officers from California deliver products to the campus, and UCSD complete random testing and investigations in their campus. They do testing, but they don't do research on the products. So lots of discussions about it. It lasted the full hour and a half. We invited over 70, almost 80 people, and there was over 50 people who attended. We received lots of positive comments, lots of directions for future conversations. Since this is a really tricky field, there's just lots more discussions that need to happen. Member Holmes, you attended this roundtable. Any comments you would like to add to this general overview?
I thought it was very well done. Congratulations on excellent participation. Of course, the conversation did veer into the whole distinction between what's federally authorized and then the Farm Bill quandary with so-called hemp. I'm still intrigued about how California San Diego campus is able to still have that moniker of reference lab, and wonder if there's something we can't replicate here with one of our state universities. So in any event, I got a lot from it. I'm intrigued by the questions raised, and again, kudos to your team for putting us together. I hope that we'll have subsequent installments.
Yeah, so we haven't decided on the topic for the next one. It won't always be based on cannabis. The next one will be in August. If you have ideas, we're happy to hear them. And yes, I'd also like to shout out to Tyler Watson and Nick Ladowski. Thank you so much for your help in setting this up and hosting this.
Well, terrific. Thank you so much. I appreciate the update, and just echo some of the comments of Board Member Holmes, and that is congratulations, and look forward to continued collaboration with our state universities and other researchers. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along, we are going to go to our policy and rules team for updates, and I believe, Kevin, you're going to kick us off for this section.
Yes. Good morning, Chair Volendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. I have the rules update for June 2025. So this month we are starting with 5 active rules projects, and we will be requesting approval to file CR 101s to initiate 2 more rules projects today. That would be the cannabis license distance measuring rule project and the cannabis badge tracking that was spurred by a petition, as well as a CR 102 rule proposal on acceptable forms of ID. Member Holmes, you had asked a question about the cannabis license distance measuring rule. We have been looking at that in terms of the benefit that it can provide for the social equity applicants. We have a tentative adoption for that one in October, and Denise will go into that more later this morning. Then at our next scheduled board meeting on June 18th, we'll be requesting approval for a CR 101 to begin rulemaking to implement House Bill 1602 on contract kitchens, CR 102 rule proposal on seasonal hours, and a CR 103 rule adoption for minors on premises. And then looking beyond this month, we plan to file 7 more CR 101s throughout July and August to initiate Senate Bill 5403 on cannabis retail agreements, the petition-driven R&D rulemaking, and 5 remaining petition requests that we accepted some time ago. And then finally, we plan to request approval for a CR 105 expedited rulemaking in August or possibly September to implement the 3 remaining legislative bills that require rulemaking. And so that would be 1636, the per transaction limit on wine and spirit sales, House Bill 1698 on mask requirements, and Senate Bill 5786 on license and permit fees. So looking at the current rules, we have the minors on premises. The public comment period will be coming to a close this week, culminating with the public hearing, which will be held on Thursday, June 5th at 10 a.m. Provided that no substantive changes are necessary in response to public feedback, we will then seek approval to file the CR 103 at our next board meeting on June 18th, and the rule will take effect a month later in July. Then we have the acceptable forms of ID. Jeff will be presenting the CR 102 proposal following my update, with a public comment period and public hearing on August 14th to follow. And if all goes as planned, we'll be able to adopt this rule in September and have the rule officially on the books by October. And then we've got the 1515 World Cup expanded outdoor alcohol service rulemaking. We filed that CR 101 on May 7th. The project team comprised of representatives across the agency has been assembled. Preliminary drafting has begun, and we had our first stakeholder meeting yesterday with the Washington Hospitality Association, and it went really well. We are well positioned to file the CR 102 rule proposal before the summer ends and adopt a rule by the end of the year. And our good progress so far is in large part due to Daniel's exceptional work analyzing this very complicated bill. So thank you to Daniel for that. And then moving on to the retail alcohol product placement rule. Throughout May, we have continued to meet with stakeholders representing various interests on this one. And last week, we held our final scheduled stakeholder meeting of the pre-proposal phase with the Washington Distillers Guild. These stakeholder meetings have been very productive in helping us to understand where there's common ground among the various interests and where our preliminary draft may have resulted in unintended consequences. So we plan to incorporate the feedback that we've received as we develop the next draft, and we'll likely be in a position to share the updated draft with stakeholders sometime in July, followed by additional opportunities for stakeholder engagement before we move to the CR 102 in late summer or early fall. And then the last of the current rules that we're working on is the seasonal hours for beer and wine licensees. That stakeholder engagement phase is complete, and we've only received favorable feedback on that one. We don't anticipate any significant issues, so Jeff plans to present the CR 102 proposal for approval at our next board meeting on the 18th. And then moving on to petitions, I am pleased to report that we have no current petitions this month. We always love to hear public feedback, but we are plenty busy. And then lastly, just miscellaneous items. We are routinely meeting with our counterparts at the Department of Health regarding their medical cannabis product compliance rulemaking, which is slated for the 102 in September. And then we are also keeping in close contact with the folks over at DOH and the Washington State Department of Agriculture. And we have apprised them of our forthcoming R&D rulemaking so that representatives of those agencies are prepared to provide feedback to ensure alignment between the three agencies on that. So that's all I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Kevin? Kevin, I have just one comment, and that is I'm eager to hear the unintended consequences that we learned about while talking about product placement, and maybe we can talk about that at our next one-on-one or when it's presented. I'd like to hear more about that, but not necessarily today.
Sure thing.
All right, thank you very much. Well, we will now turn it over to Jeff, who's going to look for, give us a CR 102 for acceptance of acceptable forms of ID. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Vollendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. Today, I will preview a CR 102 regarding the rules about the acceptable forms of identification that liquor licensees may use to verify a customer's age and eligibility to purchase alcohol, which is in WAC 314-11025. and the companion rule regarding identification that customers may use to enter a cannabis retail premises and purchase cannabis. That is in WAC 314-55-150. For background, in April 2023, the board accepted a petition to add the federal global entry card to the list of acceptable forms of identification that liquor licensees may use to verify a person's age for eligibility to purchase alcohol. In July 2023, the board accepted parts of a different petition for rulemaking requesting removal of outdated references to RCW 6616.040 from 3 other WAC sections in Chapter 314.01, Chapter 314.17, and a second section also in Chapter 314.17 WAC. And those were, that's an RCW that that went out of effect with the closure of the liquor stores that were state-owned. Because both petitions addressed acceptable forms of identification regarding the sale, service, possession, and consumption of alcohol, this is a logical and cost-effective rulemaking to combine these two petitions into a single project. In addition, the similar requirements in cannabis rules, WAC 314-55-150, have not been revisited in content since it was first created in 2013. This rulemaking project addresses acceptable forms of identification for both alcohol and cannabis customers. I will be requesting your approval to file the CR 102 at tomorrow's board meeting. If the CR 102 is approved, there will be an informal comment period on the CR 102 continuing until the public hearing on August 14th. And the presentation of the CR 103 is planned for September 10th, 2025 at the board meeting. And I can explain more about the expected timeline during tomorrow's board meeting. Thank you, and can I answer any questions?
Any questions? Seeing no questions, thank you. We'll look forward to that tomorrow, Jeff, and we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a review of the CR 101 for batch tracking of cannabis plants.
Thank you. Good morning again, Chair Vollendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. Tomorrow, I will present a CR 101 pre-proposal package to begin rulemaking to consider some requested changes to WAC 314-55-083 regarding the batch tracking of cannabis plants. The current regulation for cannabis requires that each cannabis plant that is more than 8 inches tall or 8 inches wide, the rule requires the plant to be tagged with a unique identifier and tracked individually through the flowering cycle by the producer. In October 2023, the board accepted a petition for rulemaking from a member of the public requesting amendments to part of this rule, WAC 314-55-083, subsection 4F. The requested amendments would change the tracking requirements for cannabis plants to allow individual plants to be tracked as part of a batch of plants rather than being tracked individually. If the CR 101 is approved tomorrow, there will be an informal comment period on batch tracking for cannabis plants that will be open until July 17th, 2025. Thank you, and can I answer any questions?
Seeing no questions, thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our final agenda items from the Policy and Rules team. We have Denise up, who's going to preview a CR 101 for cannabis licenses distances.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Chair Vollendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. This morning, I am previewing on the behalf of Director's Office a CR 101 we will be requesting approval of during tomorrow's board meeting to initiate rulemaking to amend WAC 314-55-050 subsection 2 related to how the 1,000-foot buffer distance is measured between a licensed cannabis premises and restricted entities such as schools. Under RCW 6950 331 subsection 8, licensed cannabis premises may not be located within 1,000 feet of the perimeter of the grounds of certain restricted facilities that include elementary or secondary schools, playgrounds, child care centers, public parks, and libraries. Cities, counties, and towns may enact ordinances to permit licensed premises within 1,000 feet, but not less than 100 feet of these facilities, with the exception of around schools and playgrounds. Currently, under WAC 314.55.050 subsection 2, this distance must be measured as the shortest straight line distance from the property line of the proposed building or business location to the property line of the restricted entity listed in statute. Redefining how the 1,000-foot buffer is measured, such as measuring along walking or driving paths of travel, could provide licensees more options for locating a cannabis business and could also better align with how buffer distance is currently measured in liquor rules. Such a change could open up more locations for possible businesses, depending on the configuration of walkways and roadways between the premises and restricted entities. Assuming the CR 101 is approved tomorrow, the informal comment period would begin and would be open until July 4th. We would plan to conduct stakeholder engagement in July and present the CR 102 with proposed rule language at the August 13th board meeting, with the public hearing on September 25th. Assuming the public hearing doesn't identify a need to substantially change the rule language, we would ask to file the final rules at the October 8th board meeting, and the rules would become effective 31 days afterwards. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Denise. Any questions for Denise? All right.
No questions, just a comment that the timing of it while we are rolling out the social equity license, and that's the biggest challenge, is finding locations. I hope this will open up more. I'm just looking at the time frame but it won't become effective until November of 2025, but it's still a move in the right direction.
Yep. Thank you. All right, Denise, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, moving right along to, we've got plenty of time here this morning. Here I am moving us along so quickly, and we got lots of time. So we're going to move to our final official board agenda item, which is conditional delegation of authority. And so we've received a proposal in the spirit of board efficiencies to consider a conditional delegation of authority, allowing rules to open CR 101s under certain circumstances without a formal board vote. It's noted in the request that there is nothing in the Administrative Procedures Act that specifically requires board approval of these actions. However, having said that, I do want to acknowledge the importance of board involvement in the rules process. So with that in mind, I'll share the details of the proposal and open it up for discussion. I have put this on the board agenda for tomorrow for action based on today's discussion. So due to board meetings being reduced to once per month, the rules team may face challenges when opening necessary CR 101s in a timely manner. While we can hold extra board meetings, this proposal will minimize the need for extra meetings to the greatest extent possible while keeping the process moving forward within the required timelines. It's pointed out in the proposal that some legislative implementation or rule projects from the 2025 legislative session are not scheduled to be brought to the board meeting vote until August of 2025. There are two identified circumstances where a board vote is not necessarily necessary. For example, once the board has voted on and approved a petition for rulemaking, the intent for rulemaking has already been established by the board. Bringing a CR 101 to the board after they have accepted a rule petition is a redundancy that takes additional time and effort on the part of the rules coordinator, the board, and board staff. Another example is legislative implementation. Once the legislature passes a bill and it's signed by the governor into law, mandatory rulemaking is a given. Bringing legislative implementation CR 101s to the board is also unnecessary, as the decision for rulemaking has already been determined. In these limited circumstances, the rules team is with these limited circumstances, we are taking into consideration the proposal that recommends a conditional delegation of authority to be made to the agency director, who could further delegate that authority to the director of policy and rules to open CR 101s, which have been predetermined by previous board action or legislative action without additional action from the board. This approach allows for more efficient planning, opening, and filing of CR 101s in these types of rule projects. All public notifications of openings of CR 101 will continue to be published on the LCB website. It will be the responsibility of the Director of Policy and External Affairs to provide formal updates to the board at either the next scheduled caucus or board meeting, or on any CR 101s that have been opened under this delegation since the last open board meeting. Any other proposed CR 101s to open rules not already predetermined by previous board or legislative action would continue to be presented to the board at a board meeting for a formal vote and approval. Today we have Justin Nordhorn here with us, the Director of Policy and External Affairs, to respond to any questions. So with that, I will now open it up for any questions from either board member or comments from Justin. Any questions or comments?
I have none. I think we've kind of discussed this for a while, and just bringing it forward now. And I think Justin did a great job on our one-on-ones explaining and going over all of this, and our one-on-ones with the director.
Great. All right, Justin, I'm seeing no questions. Do you have anything you want to add based on what I just said, or any further comments?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would highlight as this is a change, I think there will be some folks concerned about any type of changes on what goes before the board. And again, this is really all the stuff that has been predetermined. So anything that's a 101 that's like an agency initiated rule concept will still come before the board for a formal vote. And so this isn't something that is taking all the 101s out of that type of circulation, only those that have been previously approved in the rule petition process or the legislative process. And then this way, because we're moving to the once a month board meetings, this will help with the efficiencies for my staff so they can open these and get those processes started. So thank you for considering the proposal.
Yeah, of course, and thank you for helping come up with a solution that I think at least as one board member, I feel very comfortable with the proposal. So we'll put it up for vote tomorrow and see how that goes. All right, well, thank you. Our final agenda item is board member or executive assistant reports. Any updates from board members this morning? Pete, go ahead.
Just very quickly, I very much enjoyed speaking at the University of Washington School of Law since our last meeting.
Nice.
The cannabis law class taught by Professor Karen Box. It was well attended, and I have a lot of hope and admiration for the young lawyers that are being mentored that want to understand how to further 502 and other aspects of the mission of LCB.
That's great. Thank you for doing that and representing the LCB at that. Appreciate it. Yeah. All right. Anything from Gretchen or Deb?
Nothing today. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We are concluded with this week's board caucus meeting. Thank you very much.